The Texas House failed to reach a quorum yet again this morning as Democrats remain out of the state. In fact, several of them are participating in Fight the Trump Takeover protests throughout the country happening today. Now, Texas Dems could head back home as soon as this Monday. This as California formally introduced their new redistricting map in the fight. Meanwhile, Republicans are still moving full steam ahead with the mid-decade congressional map, all at Trump's orders. Already, Governor Abbott called for a second special session less than 2 hours after the first one was adjourned this week. Joining us now from Chicago, Texas State Representative Rhetta Bowers. She's one of the more than 50 Democrats who fled the state during the redistricting fallout. She's also a member of the Progressive Caucus. Representative Bowers, good to see you. Thanks for joining us tonight. So, the Texas House Speaker... Of course. The Texas House Speaker, Dustin Burrows, has warned that if Democrats try to come home, he thinks you're going to be arrested. Are you prepared for that?
We actually are. I mean, it's a civil arrest. We would be taken to the House floor and demanded that we make quorum. But we're preparing for that fight as well. We know that the work that we came to do here in the Chicago area the outcome is successful for us. We ended an entire special session, and that's what we set out to do.
Representative Bowers, in a perfect world, what does this energy and momentum look like in terms of galvanizing and organizing on the ground for the grassroots level? You've talked a little bit about the political implications and the legal implications just now with Antonia. But for people who are watching, who are inspired by the actions of Democrats in the Texas State House, what is the ask of them?
Wow. Thank you for that question. We realize that we have sounded the alarm. We have shed a national spotlight and brought it to the national stage. And so we do ask that people continue to stand up, rise up, fight back, fight to make sure that your voices can be heard and that you have the wherewithal to take your voice to the ballot box and vote for the representation that you want. We realize that these very racially gerrymandered maps will take away the voices of our constituents, and we are prepared to stand up and continue to fight for them, whether that's here protesting by this quorum break, or whether it's going to the floor or to the courts. We're preparing at every level to do what it takes to fight for our constituents.
Representative Bowers, there's a growing fear that it's not just about congressional maps, that Republicans, including the state representative Mitch Little in Texas, said that he wants to not just stop at congressional maps, but also expand to state legislators. I was wondering if you can talk about that and the idea of drawing a new map for the state legislator in Texas, how that would impact the state and representation within the state.
Well, this is already illegal. It's a mid-decade redrawing of maps and redistricting that we don't even do. We do this every 10 years, and that's constitutionally written that way. I appreciate what my colleague is saying, but people need to know that when you stand up to do a sacrificial move using that tool of breaking quorum, it goes without saying that you're sacrificing everything. So it really doesn't matter to us what they're going to come at us with. We'll go back when we go back with our demands, and we're ready to continue fighting in a unified way.
Could continuing the fight look like having to leave the state again? And I ask because, one of the things Texas is, of course, looking to right now is the action that Gavin Newsom in California is taking. But that depends on voters actually approving that step. So in the event that voters don't allow California to do this, Texas does move ahead. This could put not just Texas Democrats, but Democrats across the nation in peril.
Absolutely. That is what we have known. I'm proud to be a member that was asked to go to that meeting with Governor Newsom on that second delegation trip. And they do have an independent redistricting commission out there. And this means that, you know, what California is doing triggers Illinois, triggers New York. So this is a national movement. That is what we set out to do. This might have been first happening in Texas, but we knew that it was going to go across the nation. The Indiana House members came and met with us as well. People do recognize that this is a steal, a cheat, a power grab, and it's racially motivated.
To that last point about the racial motivations and the undertones that we are looking at as far as this attempt to sort of mid-season do this redistricting, has there been any success in terms of having conversations with your Republican colleagues across the aisle to de-escalate the rhetoric or to talk about the fact that these efforts would literally disenfranchise tens of thousands of voters of color, specifically black voters in the state of Texas? What has that conversation been like?
You know, those conversations are happening, and we are preparing to go back to the floor to have these fights, to make sure we're making the statements, asking the questions we need to on the floor so that we do have a case when it has to go to the courts. It will dilute political power for black and brown communities. So we have to make sure that those historical districts that were created just so that black and brown people had a voice remain. That we don't lose the ability to have a voice when it comes and a say when it comes to access to health care, when it comes to educating our students, when it comes to people being able to put food on their table and the protections of hardworking families.
Pointing out that I'm sorry. No, I was just saying, pointing out the historical context of the fact that these districts were created to make sure that all had the access to the ballot that they're supposed to is such an important part of this conversation. Texas State Representative Rhetta Bowers, thank you for being here.
Thank you all. Thank you for having me.